You're listening to The Blind Chick, an AfterSight original podcast. We're telling you stories about strength, overcoming hurdles, and living experiences. We see who you really are. Blindness can be an adventure. Are you ready for the journey of a lifetime? We are. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to The Blind Chick. You're listening to part 2 with Joel Schneider. Penn and Moses have done an amazing job, so we're going to hop right back in. Penn, take it away.
But I've actually I've had several guide dogs, and they are all so totally different from each other. So but it always like they're different, but their relationship to me is very similar, which that always surprises me when I go to get a new dog. Like the dog I have now, he's 10, and he's on retirement stage, but I'll keep him until he passes away, and I'm not going to replace him. But it's for anybody out there that is dealing with trauma or disability, that has been thinking about getting a service dog. How do they find out more about you and about Soul Dogs?
Well, in regards to finding out about us, we operate through the state of Colorado, the Medicaid waiver system, right? We're part of the what they call the HCBS, the Home and Community-Based Services Waiver. So we typically operate with folks who are on the Supported Living Services Waiver, or as it's called, SLS. We worked with the Developmental Disabilities Waiver, DD. For those of you who might be old school listening, that's the COMP waiver, the comprehensive waiver from back in the day. And what we're doing essentially is we run this as a job development program, right? So the folks that we have here are learning this skill because they want to apply it somehow in their employment future, right? We're giving them the ability to take this and make it into a career that they hope to have. So we have some folks that want to be trainers, and we are putting those folks through our competencies and our modules. So we have like an online learning component, we have the hands-on in-class component, and then we do a great deal of kind of the community-based, all right, we're going to take this dog through Costco, Home Depot, movie theater, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And we're going to practice the skills that we develop. Those folks will hopefully take that on and be like, you know what, I want to be a dog trainer and work in a dog training facility or group. And we're going to prepare them to take what is called the National Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers. It is a nationally recognized group that every trainer in the United States either trains their people towards or requires a certification kind of from, right? They are kind of this national group because state level wise, when it comes down to training is as kind of broad and non-specific as a Mexican restaurant. Some people's green chili is far different than other people's green chili, right? Yeah. And when you come down to dog training, it's the same thing. Hey, we're using Steve's method for dog training. Well, we really like Bill's method for dog training. It's like, oh, well then. But that's kind of how it works. That national certification is a great foot in the door for any client we have that wants to get in that field. And it is something that is recognized by any group they might want to work with. Other folks here, we have one young woman who's working on becoming a groomer. So we've set it up here so that we have a dog kind of washing station in the very back of our business here. She's able to advertise her business, and the days that she attends, she gets to practice grooming with one of our staff, kind of supervising, who is also a former groomer, helping with the cutting, bathing, and everything else to give her kind of that experience. When you talk to dog groomers out in the community, these folks have been doing it for years, and they all start the same way. They start by bathing dogs. That's it. It's lifting dogs into big metal tubs. It's getting them down. It's trying not to be bit. It's all these things. Exactly. She gets to try to learn this experience in a one-on-one kind of supported environment where mistakes are going to be made, and that's okay. But you still get to make some money while you're doing this. Some of our other folks that are looking to become trainers, they are also working as apprentices with us. So they get to lead dog training classes. They get to try to do some dog training in the community as well. And we pay these folks a fair wage for their service. So we try to focus everything as a way to getting to a career that hopefully is what you want in the future. That's always been the plan.
So how do they find out about the program? If, say there's somebody out there that's like, hey, this sounds like a really good fit for my, my son or daughter or, my neighbor, I want to, like, how do they find out more?
Well, typically if someone is already on the waiver and looking for that service, they typically have someone in their team of support, usually a resource coordinator, case manager, and they say, hey, I want to work on dog training. Do you know anything? They'll send out something called an RFP, request for proposal. And that typically goes to any agency kind of in that county or in that kind of catchment area for that case management group, right?
Right.
On the other side of things, we have to rely a lot on the idea of word of mouth. Our website, soul-dogs-inc.org, is always operating 24/7, gives folks a chance to sign up for the community classes we teach, as well as just reach out and ask questions like, hey, I'm curious about training a dog. I don't have waiver services right now, but maybe I'm getting in the future. What can you do? I mean, luckily, some of us have experience in the field. I was a case manager for a couple of years. I understand the waivers and kind of how to get to them, the process to get on them. So I guide people through that process. We also are a vendor for the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, which supports people with disabilities through, state, federal funding. And with them, it's kind of the same thing. We really rely a lot on making sure that people know who we are. So we make some really good connections with the case management agencies around us in the nearby counties. There's been a huge amount of change with those agencies just in the past 6 months due to some new state regulations being passed. But, it really is about getting out there. We go to things, we're super happy to be part of Shine Fest. We cannot wait to see what happens.
We can't either because, exactly.
I've never, we try to get out as often as we can. We attend, larger scale events like, Broomfield Days, Westie Fest, kind of these community community gatherings where people just bring booze together. There's carnival rides, there's food. We always try to get in part of the nonprofit group and just kind of decide or talk about what we do, who we are. We always bring dogs with us because who doesn't like to be walking around the day and see a dog that has just heart-melting eyes on them, right? And that's
absolutely
what we do. People are suckers for dogs sometimes, so it really helps us out a lot.
Right.
But it really is a word-of-mouth situation because there's a whole breadth of the population that we are not going to be able to suitably serve. We have geared ourselves towards the IDD population, right? That's where our funding comes from. As a nonprofit, we are set by the standards of healthcare policy and financing by HCPF. They decide the rates that we get paid for the service we provide. We're not here making money. We're just here because we recognize that if we can provide enough empirical evidence for how awesome this service is, then we can probably get this service added as something that more people can access, that can be more worthwhile and be more advantageous for those that didn't even know this was a possibility. I will be honest, if I were not in this field, you could not sit around and probably tell me, oh yeah, there's a group that trains people with disabilities to train service dogs. I'd be like, what?
Right.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So it's a rare thing. We know we are a very
it's magic.
Right. Yeah. We're a very niche little magical group, and we're hoping to grow and get bigger. But it takes some time. You got to have people that want to try to work with dogs. And like you said, Ben, there are some folks that come in and it's like, this really isn't for me, and that's understandable because with every dog and seeing the joy in their eyes when you give them a treat and they sit, there's also that part where you got to clean up their poo.
I know.
Multiple times throughout the day.
Yeah. Or throw up. Or
throw up. It's like, oh, they digested part of that toy. Well, we're going to get that back later in the worst way possible.
That's where that sock went.
Yeah. So we have to be realistic and say, listen, you're going to love this part. and you're going to have to experience this other part. So this is also the part of working with the dog, whether a trainer, whether you want to be a groomer, whether you want to work maybe with police dogs in the future, whatever the case might be. All this training, it's going to involve this bad side that no one really loves, but we all do because it's appropriate care for the animal that you're helping out.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's like when you go, to get your guide dog school, go to guide dog school to get your dog. The very first time you go, you do learn all that kind of stuff, right? Like you have to, there's actually a whole class on how to pick up the poop, how to feed them, how to care for them, how to brush them. Like it's not, these dogs don't show up in public, perfectly groomed and beautiful and well-behaved without all the work.
If you don't mind me asking, Penn, how long, because again, guide dog training is not something to do. How long was guide dog training school for you? Like, what was the length of time for that?
Well, it's changed over the years, but it used to be you would go to the school and you'd have to go there. So for 28 days. So if you were an adult working or if you were a student, which I was when I went to get my first one, I had to go during the summertime. Yeah. So, but then when you go back, like if you've already been through the school and it was successful and you had your guide dog for a while and and it just needed to retire, the second time you went back, it was 2 weeks. And then, so now they do sort of a kind of a hybrid. Like when I went to get my last guide dog, Beethoven, I went for 2 weeks. I was on class. And then when I got home, a trainer met me like the next day. And then we worked for a week in my home surrounding one-on-one. Okay. And then a lot of the guide dog schools now will actually send a trainer to you. You never even have to go to the campus. So and I think it's because it is really hard to take an entire, month, 28 days off of life, especially if you're working or you're a student, it's a long time.
It absolutely is.
So
I can remember as a case manager before I became involved with soul dogs, there were multiple times I would talk with clients who said, listen, I feel that I need a support animal, not just emotional support, but to provide me a service. And then you look into what it costs and kind of what these specific aspects are of actual service dog training and everything else. It is almost years, and they want you to be obviously involved with the training. And sometimes someone cannot be a part of that for 8 hours every single day for an entire month, right? It's draining physically, mentally.
Oh, yeah.
So it's so weird to see that there are so many out there that really would benefit from the support of a service animal, but to get it, they either can't afford it, can't commit to the time, or some other giant ravine exists between them and the service dog that would help them so well. It's amazing. And the cost alone, it's like 25, maybe 35 grand from kind of start to finish with
easily,
the dog to get it in the service.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Beethoven, I didn't pay for it, but Beethoven is more expensive than our car. You know what I mean? Like it's right. people don't realize that, they just see this, cute puppy and everything, when they come home, and it's like, no, this is a miracle. Well, and like you were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, Joel, about how many dogs don't make it. Yeah. It's the same thing with guide dogs. It's the majority of the percentage of guide dogs that go into, okay, this puppy's going to grow up and be a guide dog. Most of them don't make it. Their career changed to like what you said, like, well, this dog, we thought it was going to be, help maybe with detecting, a diabetic seizure, but you know what? They're really into maybe a hearing dog or being able to open and close doors and things like that. And it's the same thing with the guide dogs. So many of the guide dogs end up getting career changed, and it can be something simple like they're too friendly, which is not a bad thing, but it's a bad thing for a guide dog. You don't want your guide dog going from person to person to person to person.
It's such a sad thing to think that this dog that is so delightful and connects with anybody and everybody, it's like, well, unfortunately, you can't be a service dog because you wag your tail everywhere they come up to you. Yeah, that's so tough. That is absolutely the toughest thing to see because, we work with cute, adorable dogs every single day. And it's like, oh, man, that's really going to mess up your chances of being a service dog.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it's so cute, right?
But it's so freaking cute. It doesn't care that it's not going to be a service dog. It just wants your attention and love. It's amazing because what we had, like I said, our first group was 5 Labrador Retriever puppies, and every single one of them was adopted out and now just lives a pretty normal life, right? The 2 German Shepherds, one, like I said, went into protection. And then the other one was just adopted to a loving family. So it's really tough because, we're working with a small group of dogs every single time. So we don't have this kind of large sample to kind of see what happens. What I would really love to see with our group is being able to actually work with humane societies and shelters in the area and work on helping to train with their dogs to kind of benefit adoption and things like that, right? Anything that kind of helps us get our trainers and apprentices out there to be a part of the community and really kind of support just that one connection is always so important. I
was going to ask you, can people contact you through the website if they are they have a litter coming up or have one now that's like, hey, I would like to donate potentially. Do they just reach out to you or somebody on your staff?
We are happy to hear of anyone that wants to donate. Part of what we have to do is make sure we have appropriate fosters in place because the folks that take the dogs home at the end of the day, they're the ones that are responsible for, kind of maintaining their training and everything else.
Right.
Because the home environment is such a huge piece of continued success for any service dog.
Yeah.
If anyone is out there and they're thinking, I've got this great litter of puppies, their parents had great temperaments, we think that the children are going to be the same way, we would love to see them. It's one of those things where the community is something that any nonprofit relies upon for any number of things. We typically are not out there seeking donations or anything else, but when it comes to animals, if it's a matter of, this dog needs a place to be and they might end up being a good service dog, we'd be happy to do an assessment because we do training for service dogs outside of our program. Our working dog coordinator, Genevieve, will do assessments on service dogs for training, and then we will help someone train their own dog to be a service dog if it can pass kind of that initial, I think it's a canine good citizen assessment, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So kind of getting through those normal elements of, not being too reactive, being able to loose leash wall, kind of, I think those are some general elements of that kind of assessment. Right. But we can work with the community to make their own service dog or to help train their current dog to become their service dog. So,
that's a good, because I have a guide dog, I get asked all the time, like, oh, my daughter, has PTSD or something, whatever it is, or an intellectual disability. And we've been looking at getting a service dog, but we really just don't know where to start. So it would be great to have this resource because I can talk about guide dogs all day long, but other types of service dogs, I'm a little bit, uneducated about it.
Yeah. When it comes down to it, people can inquire on our website whenever they would like to. We monitor it typically throughout the week. I'm typically on there at least once a week, just making sure there are no backups to messages. But we've had people reach out multiple times to the website and say, hey, we have this dog, we have our son or daughter that is experiencing this issue. Is there a chance that we can train our dog to be a service animal? And we have others that reach out and just say, how can I get an appropriate service animal for myself? And I forward those all on to Genevieve, who helps kind of answer whatever questions she can to get those people the appropriate support. I mean, it's one of the things where, we're not here just to get the service for ourselves. With my experience in the field and everything, I love guiding people through DVR. I love guiding people through the waiver system. As long as at the end, the support has been found and that person can breathe a sigh of relief, that's all that matters to us. Mm-hmm. Whether it be someone coming into us to get training or Genevieve recommending, it's like, well, it sounds like you need this and you can find this in a much better way with this program or with this group. That's all we're looking for, because this stuff it's serious business. I mean, we're talking about an animal that we hope will support someone as long as its body and mind can make that happen. That's a lot of dedication from an animal. So we want to make sure it's successful as best we can. And we do that by knowing that we are a small part of this hopefully well-running machine that's going to help get people to the right groups or right agencies to provide them what they're looking for. So it doesn't matter what they're looking for. If it's a random question that you ask and we can give you an answer, excellent. You get your answer, you move on with your day. If it's something we can provide for you, hey, fantastic. We'd love to provide it for you too. But it really is just about pointing people in the right direction. That's all we want to try and do if we can.
Yeah, it's the same here at Aftersight. We call ourselves an information hub, and I don't have all the answers, right? None of us do. But if we can maybe connect somebody to somebody else that may or may, we do refer somebody to Soul Dogs, but maybe Soul Dogs doesn't have the answer, but you guys will be more likely to have an answer or know somebody who can have the answer.
Absolutely.
So that's what's beautiful about the nonprofit world, is that we're all basically doing the same thing. Where we want people to be able to live their absolute best life, whatever those tools, that are needed. We want to make sure that people have access to them.
To get to a wrap up, have you got any major takeaway that you would like to be sure everybody hears before we say goodbye?
Ooh, I mean, I think on my end, what we really try to do, besides just the idea of training dogs for service, is training the idea of humane treatment for all creatures, whether they be human, whether they be dog. It's the idea that, we are a person-centered process and we are a dog-focused group. And the reason that we do all these things is because we want the best for the person and for the animal. So when folks are out there, when they are looking for that shelter dog to bring home and love, that's great. They don't have to be perfect. There are always options for you to find and train that dog to make it something that hopefully can be a great part of your life, right? Mm-hmm. We strongly encourage everyone to adopt, to provide care to animals when you can. If anyone out there feels that they would like to be a foster for animals, just do the short term, please do it. I mean, the shelter system in general is always burdened with the unfortunate mistakes of previous pet owners, right? So anyone out there, if you have any room in your heart, in your home to provide space for a dog, whether it be temporary, whether it be long-term, then open it up and do so. There are many great supports out there for training, for finding the appropriate foodstuffs and supplies you might need at lower costs. Just don't be afraid to take that step and to really kind of support an animal that is in need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. I know.
Well, Joe, thank all of you for what you guys are doing at Soul Dogs. I mean, it's so many different layers, and it's been wonderful to really get the inside scoop on it from you. I did want to give a shout out to Joel. here at Aftersight, and look us up, aftersight.org. We need volunteer readers to read everything from newspapers, magazines, PSAs, anything out there that's really hard to access when you struggle reading print for whatever reason. And Joel is one of our volunteers. And I hear that you want to even read more. So this is super exciting. So I definitely wanted to give you a shout out because it takes a very special soul, no pun intended, but to volunteer and to give your time to a nonprofit that's, trying to make this world a better place. So I want to thank you because I've been a listener of Aftersight for decades. And so whenever I can personally thank one of our volunteers, I want to do so. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate it because I wanted to be part of the program, but they just didn't have any place for somebody that can only look at photos.
We're still trying to find a special place.
Yeah, they just didn't have a picture book part.
Right? Yeah, I hear you. These pictures are just so tempting. You can't help it.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, well, Joe, thank you. And we definitely will put a link to the websites for Soul Dogs into the podcast notes so you guys can definitely reach out. Also, they take donations, not just puppies, but actual hardcore cash. So if you've got some extra funds out there and you love animals and you love their mission, please support Soul Dogs. And Joel, again, thank you so much. I know you're a very busy guy for taking time with us today. And also thank Aftersight. Definitely could not be doing The Blind Chick without all of their wonderful support. And then make sure you be kind to yourselves this week and find a way to be kind to somebody else. It's good for your soul.